When was like the first time you played baseball?
Well, I can remember playing. I went to a baseball game in 1948. The Boston Braves were playing the Chicago Cubs, and the Cubs won 1-0. Red Barrett was the pitcher for the Braves, and he was always one of my heroes after that. I don't think he ever did too much, but that was the days when they had Spawn and Sane pitching. And the motto was Spawn and Sane, pray for rain. But Red Barrett pitched that one-run game, lost, but that was a good game. It was in Boston Braves field, and that made me the expert on baseball because no one else had hardly ever even seen a game.
In your family?
No, in the schools.
Oh, in the school.
In grammar school. So we used to play, and we have rocks or bases, and we had anything we could find. There was an old hockey stick in the house that we'd bought. My dad and mother bought it. And up in the attic, there was all kinds of sports stuff. The guy that lived there had been quite a sportsman, I guess. I don't know when he did it, but I found a hockey stick, so I sawed the end of it off, and that was not bad. We used that for a bat. It was good. It worked good, flat surface. Because we never had a baseball either. We always had rubber balls. And then we started going down, before I ever started working, we'd go down the baseball field, which was just two houses, or one house below our house there in Burlington. We'd play all day long, starting around noontime. We'd all eat lunch and go down. Every kid in town that could would be down there. Then in the evening, the men would start coming, and all the men in the town that were young enough to play would be down there. We'd have scrimmages, and we'd play till it gets so dark you couldn't see the ball. And I remember the Bowers boys, Junior and Glendon Bowers, are both very good ball players, but they both had girlfriends, and us young guys couldn't figure out why they would leave the ball field to go with their girls on Friday night rather than staying and playing ball. And so, but that's how crazy we were. One summer, a man with the name of, or a kid by the name of Ralph Libby moved in across the street from us. I got to be real friendly with him. He was a Red Sox fan, and I was a Brave fan. And we had a big maple tree out in front of the house. So we climbed that tree every day and I carved the name of every Boston Brave player, and he carved the name of all the Red Sox players in that tree. I wonder if there's anything left of it now, but probably the tree isn't even there. But we used to do that every day. And he had a baseball game that we used to play, and he was the one that taught me how to keep score. He went on to coach Howland and the high school team when I was coaching the junior high. So, this little the junior high team. So, but, we had kind of a rivalry. He didn't have as good a season as I did, though.
What's your favorite baseball coaching memory?
Well, I think the best one was coaching junior high ball, and I coached in West End. Well, I taught it. I was principal at West Enfield, and they asked me to coach the junior high in Howland, and they didn't tell me they didn't have a field. They were building a baseball field, but so we played 12 games all on the road, and won 11 of them. So we had a great year that year. So that was almost the impossible thing, but being the visiting team every time, it worked out that way. Yeah. It was good.
What about playing baseball?
I just love to play baseball. I played from the time I was 14 to then eventually fast pitch softball came in, and started playing that in the Army. That's the first time I had a chance to play fast pitch, but I loved to play baseball. For a while, I played on two different teams in the summer, two men's teams. And I was old enough to be, I was in my 20s then. But I pitched one night for a team in Mettawamkeag, the Keggers, and I pitched playing against Patton. I remember it well. Pitched a no-hitter. And then in the Bangor Daily News the next Friday, they had a picture. They had a article in the paper said Ralph Turner will be pitching Sunday's game. He's the only lead pitcher with a no-hitter this year, which was true. I didn't pitch it for Minnewaukee, but it was they didn't designate that I wasn't. I didn't pitch it for Lee. So, but,
What was the moment when you're like, wow, I'm actually really good at baseball? Was there a moment where you were like, pretty good?
well, I think maybe my biggest moment was my first time at bat in high school, and I had a home run.
Yeah.
First time at bat.
Pretty good.
Yeah. I think I led the team in home runs for 2 of the 3 years I played. So the third one I was one behind. The end, one guy had one more than I did. So yeah.
What about pitching? Was there a moment where you're like, dang, I can throw pretty hard?
Well, I can remember my catcher in high school was talking to some friends of mine, and they asked him about my pitching. He said, "Oh, my hand." He said that hurt every time he pitched. That would hurt my hand. So they told me about it afterwards. That was one of my. I used to throw hard.
Yeah. What pitches did you throw?
I had a couple. I had break either way, and basically a fastball though. It's that high school level fastballs are pretty sure. So.
How fast could you throw in high school?
Oh, I don't know. We didn't have any way to keep them that way. I'm going to say either high 80s, low 90s, maybe. Yeah. I always had a good arm.
Yeah. So when was the moment when you decided, you know what, I'm going to try out for the Red Sox? Walk me through that.
I went to a training camp, and I'd been there 3 days, and it had rained all 3 days. And I had a job that I'd left to go to the camp, and I said, well, I'd rather go back, because I was trying to earn enough money to go to college, and so I said, he said, well, I'll watch you pitch anyway, and the coach, one of the coaches said, so I threw for him in the rain. He said, well, you've got a good fastball. I said, well, I've got to leave, so I've got to go back to work, so I left. I had a chance to play. I had a pro contract in Washington, D.C., but I didn't take it because I didn't have transportation. They'd offered me $20 a game, which was back in the 50s was quite a lot of money for pitching. They just wanted me to pitch on Sundays, so that was the day I had off. But I didn't take it. It's too hard to get back and forth. So.
What got you to that training camp for the Red Sox? Did you just say, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot?
Yeah,
Did they recruit you?
They was having an open camp, so I figured, well, why not?
Yeah.
So I thought there was a lot of us there, a lot of high school kids, college kids too. So I almost wish I'd stayed a little longer, but I don't know if I would have mounted anything.
So then, did you play semi-pro after that, or was that
semi-pro for years after that?
Really?
Yeah.
What was semi-pro baseball like?
It was good. The first year I played, we had actually had a 16-team league. They called it the Cold Stream League. Yeah. Back in those days, every town had a baseball team, and we played usually 2 games a week. One night game and one, maybe sometimes a doubleheader on Sunday. Yeah. But it seemed like everybody in town would come to the game. And the field in Burlington, our home field was Burlington, and there was cars all around the field. We had a hot dog stand, we had bleachers, and I enjoyed that. It was good. So of course, I was the youngest one on the team by far. So
really,
yeah.
What was like the usual ages?
Well, they was all in their 20s and 30s. And
so how old were you?
14. But I played center field and enjoyed it. I started out the first year of the league. I was the official scorekeeper. I'd learned how to keep score and used to keep score on the radio of Red Sox games. So, so I was the official scorekeeper at 13. And kept all the books. So enjoyed that, and I've always enjoyed keeping records like that. So every team I ever coached, I always kept the records. So I enjoyed sharing them with the kids. So we had a lot of fun playing ball, and I played for Lee AA, Lee AC, I guess it was, in the summer, plus Metawamke. And after the season ended, the whole team went to Boston, and pardon me, they see a Red Sox game, and that's when I caught the Ted Williams ball.
Yeah.
It's quite one of the big thrills of my life to catch a ball that he hit. And I had to fight. Actually, they fought for me. There was all 18 of us were sitting in 2 or 3 rows there, and I caught the ball, and a bunch of guys jumped on me, and I was holding it so they wouldn't get it, and our guys were picking them off and just getting me up again. So it was funny. We was having Aunt Catherine's funeral. There was a guy from Lee there, and he said, "Oh, you're the one that caught that Ted Williams ball, aren't you?" So he remembered back even so many years afterwards. So yeah, yeah. Still love baseball. I still love and the Red Sox are still my team after all these years. I watch the Rays down here some, but still a Red Sox fan. Yeah.
When did you meet Grandma?
Well, we met on a blind date. Back, my next door neighbor set me up with a blind date. We met at a restaurant. I bought her a hamburger.
Man, it's so romantic.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what to expect from a blind date. I liked her, and I went. I don't know if we dated the next week, but not too long after that, I had started dating her. We went together 4 months, and I decided it's time to get married. So they were pressuring her to go to Florida to work. And I didn't want to go to Florida. They even offered, if I wanted to get married and move down there, that they'd help me in school. But I didn't want to go to Florida school either. So if I'd known how nice it was down here, I probably would have gone. So.
What was something that stuck out about Grandma when you first met her?
Well, I thought she looked older than I was 25, I think.
Yeah.
And she was 23, and I thought, she looks old. She was mature, She was, but she was good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And what? And after 4 months, you're like, I've seen enough. Let's do this.
So we got engaged after like 2 months.
Really?
Yeah.
How'd you know like so quickly?
I just felt that she and I got along so good.
Yeah.
And I was working nights, and I'd usually, on my way to work, I'd stop in, and she was taking care of kids. Her family had gone to Florida, I guess, and she had 3 or 4 kids there. And I used to like the kids. I'd stop in and visit and play with the kids, and she'd usually get me a snack or something. So it worked out well, and it's kind of, it was either get her or lose her. So I went after it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And 58 years later,
Still there, hanging on.
Hanging on. What would you say for someone? So say there's a newlywed couple that comes to you and it's like, how do we make it 58 years?
Yeah, you've got to be both willing to give a little bit.
Yeah.
You can't have your way all the time. You've got to cooperate together. So that's the biggest thing, And I think the Bible says never go to bed angry with each other. Always get it settled, whatever the problem was, before you go to bed. Mm-hmm. So we try to do that. And we don't have many disagreements, so we're pretty well matched. She had a hard life growing up. Her mother died when she was, I don't know, 3 or 4, and she was left with her older sister sickly. She couldn't do much, so Sue ended up doing most of the cooking and cleaning and stuff that had to be done in the house. This all took place in Paraguay, South America, of course. So no, she was well prepared to be a wife.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like because you saw that she was mature for her age, probably her upbringing, like her childhood, probably prepared her. You know.
Yeah, we were kind of unequally yoked, as the Bible says.
Yeah.
She was a Mennonite, had been a very strict Mennonite for years, for growing up, and I was really nothing.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to accept the fact that I was probably time to change my ways a little bit. So,
Yeah.
we get along well.
Did she have a big part in changing you?
Oh yeah, yeah. Just by her the way she lived,
What was different about the way she lived?
Well, the family never drank, never smoked or anything like that. And I was working nights and I was trying to stay awake, and I tried to smoke, but I really never did. And I set that. I was running a machine that, once you get it set up, it could run for like 6 hours without touching it. You just sat there, and I was grinding spine shafts and propeller shafts. And if the thing got off track, then you had to immediately hit a stop button. So you had to sit there and watch the thing, and back and forth and back and forth. And when I went in at midnight and worked at 6:30, and it got very hard to stay awake. So yeah. So I tried drinking tea and I tried smoking a pipe, and nothing seemed to work too good. But it worked out well that when I came home from work, she was working, and she'd jump in the car and she'd go to her job, so I could sleep good in the house at night and during the day. I mean,
Yeah.
gave us the evenings together. It worked out well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in New Haven, East Haven, Connecticut. Yeah, we lived there until she got pregnant with Ralph. And I said, I'm not going to bring kids up in Connecticut. So that's when they moved back to Maine, and I stopped at Augusta at the State Department of Education. I asked them if there were any openings anywhere that they knew of, and they said, yeah, you go to Danforth, and they'll hire you right on the spot. So I did. They were desperate for a teacher, so that was my beginning. 32 years later, I retired. Did a few other things. I've retired 3 times. So
3 times?
yeah.
Why, you just like retire, get bored, and go back?
Well, yeah, more or less. And she was still working. I think the best job I ever had, though, was I was program coordinator for the retired senior volunteer program.
Yeah.
55 people, 55 years old or older. And I had 950 people that I was responsible for.
Really?
In 2 counties, Penobscot and Piscataqua. So I had to find jobs for them and kept me busy. I worked full time for that for 6 years. So that's one of the best jobs I had, though. It was so much different than working with school kids than working with seniors. And,
Yeah.
They all appreciated, they wanted to help, and it was a job you could do any amount of time you wanted, or you didn't have to work, but you wanted to. It's met some awful good people, older people.
Yeah.
Because I was in my 60s then, so 58 to 60, probably 64 or so, till I retired again.
What's a quality in Grandma that you admire?
Well, she's very honest.
Yeah.
She enjoys helping other people. She was brought up to anybody that was at least a bit sick or anything, they always took them food, and she feeds half the neighborhood here. And there's a lot of widowed men that live in this area, and they appreciate getting a little cake or some cookies or something, a special piece of she makes a casserole or something. She takes a dish of that. And, it's home cooking that they usually do. Hard to beat it.
Yeah, hard to beat it. Honesty, how important is that in a relationship?
To help other people.
No, like honesty.
Oh,
like
honesty.
Just,
yeah. Yeah. Don't ever try to put something over on your wife. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I know from experience.
Yeah. I can't remember that I ever tried to put much over on her, but I knew that I couldn't hide anything if I'd just bring down and tell her if there was a problem of some sort. So, or if I'd done something that I shouldn't have. Like buying this trailer mobile home. She was in the hospital, and this came up for sale right across the street. We were living across the street. And so I called my son Ralph, and I said, the house across the street's for sale, and it's a good look. It's a good setup. It's got on a big carport, and got 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and about what we'd talked about getting a house. And I said, that's about what we'd like to have. I'd like to have. So I bought it, and then I went down and told her on it, and she got over it. Well, she was just shocked.
Yeah.
And she's never been, I don't think she's been disappointed by it. So.
Raising kids, what's something you got to keep in mind when you're raising kids?
Well, be with them as much as you can. We used to do a lot of camping, and when you're out camping and you don't know anybody else around you, you've got your kids, and play with them and do things with them, fish with them, and we used to go down to Lemoyne, and you could catch mackerel off the float there. And we used to go down there and fish, and they had a playground. She'd take them to the playground more than I did. She'd play ball with them, and it's. Quite often I'd be working during the day and going down at night. By the time I got down there after a day's work, I didn't feel too much like going out and playing too much, but she did, so it worked out well. And we camped a lot. Enjoyed it. So.
Were you scared to be a dad at first?
Oh, we were so happy. Oh, I was so happy. I mean, I was 26 years old when Ralph was born.
Oh, really?
And my mother and father had always wanted kids. My mother had lost 5 or 6 kids before I was born, and my mother just loved kids. Well, my dad did too, because Dad wasn't home as much. And I felt the same way. I just wanted kids, and I was glad to have 3 boys. I was glad to have boys. I just wish they'd have been more interested in sports, which. Anthony was about the only one that played many sports, so high school.
Was it challenging having 3 boys in the house?
At times.
Yeah.
Especially as they got up into the teen years.
Why? What happened?
Oh, a lot of temptations. And, once they got the driver's license, I came home one night I'd been at a meeting. There was 3, 4 boys in my garage, and they had a deer hanging out. And the deer, they'd run into it and killed it and loaded it in the back of the car. And I don't know how long they'd driven around with the thing in the back end. But when I got there, she started to swell. And they hadn't dressed it out or anything. And they were waiting for me to go home and dress it out. So they was all standing around because that gas had started building up. The first cut I made, the gas, and there wasn't a boy in the garage. They all took off. But that was a good experience for them. They learned how you. The deer was pretty much stove up, though there wasn't much out in that was good. So, yeah. But I showed them how to dress him off, and I don't know if they ever get much chance. I know your father has, and I guess Paul shot deer too. So there wasn't much chance to do it though. When I was young, there was a lot of deer. There was deer everywhere, and I used to hunt and fish all the time. And when I wasn't playing ball, and It plenty of opportunity in Burlington. When you live in a little town in Burlington, there was nothing else to do, you know.
Yeah.
After you play ball, and that died out after a while. And when I was in high school, and I could jump in the car and go shoot partridges in the morning before I went. I got on the bus at 7:00, and get home at 5. Had to go from Burlington to Lee, which is quite a drive, 65 miles. So it made it kind of hard, you know, as far as I didn't bring many books home, so probably could have studied a lot more. But no, that was good. I enjoyed the small town life, though, and I've always said they couldn't get in trouble because there wasn't any.
How'd you come to know Christ?
Well, I did it, and we'd been going to the Baptist church there in Old Town, and had gone, well, several years, and I knew that all the ladies were praying that I'd accept Christ. And
Yeah.
I just hadn't really, you know, I'd gone to church most of my life, but I hadn't, I'd never talked about salvation or anything like that. And until I found out about it, you know, that giving your life to Christ, that I just didn't feel any need of it. But after I started going to Baptist church, I figured, well, someday I got to do it. And the day came, and the men's group used to go to the gym there, the junior high gym in Old Town, once Thursday nights and play basketball. There was probably 15 of us who used to go. And it happened that the pastor and I both came out at the same time. We kept switching off. And he came over, and we sat down in the bleachers then. He came over and he said, don't you think it's time that you accepted the Lord? I said, I've been waiting for somebody to really come and ask me like that. And I said, yes. Well, then, so we went through the process and accepted the Lord. I think Ralph and your father, I guess it was, Anthony, and I were all baptized on Easter Sunday morning, that 1970. Yeah, so it was a good experience to be baptized with two of your sons. Paul had already been baptized. He was ahead of us, so it was a good experience. Never regretted it.
How's your life changed because of that?
Oh, I don't, you know, I really live for the Lord now. We don't do anything that would upset the standards. So we try to live a good moral life. That's the way that we've always tried to go.
Yeah. Now, you and Grandma do your morning devotional quiet time together.
Oh, yes.
How long you been doing that?
Oh, for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a system worked out. We used to both pray, and it would take probably an hour and a half to go through all the people that we prayed for. And now we've changed it so that we both read from the Bible. I have my program, she has her program. After we do our Bible, then I have a short prayer, usually just praying for the family and other things in the church, but then she prays, and she prays for an hour at least, sometimes more. Then in the evening I pray, and she has a little on the end, so it works out good. We pray about 3 hours a night praying.
Really?
Yeah. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's not a waste of time.
Yeah, it's not a waste of time.
It brings us closer together too.
It brings you together.
Yeah.
Yeah. How has it brought you together over the years?
So we make that time. You know, a lot of good television programs that we might be watching if we wanted to, but we don't. We turn everything off and just take that time for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Do you got a favorite book of the Bible?
Well, yeah, I like Romans.
Yeah.
You know, it's a plan of salvation, Roman road, and all that. And I like Psalms. I like the Proverbs, and so, you know. But I had a long time that I read 5 chapters a morning
Really?
before we started praying together. And I read through the Bible cover to cover 15 times.
Yeah.
But now I have a senior Bible, and then you go step by step, and we don't read it word for word. We skip from maybe skip 4 or 5 pages and pick out the most important things. This is the 13th year I've gone through that, so I'm about to go into the final quarter of it, the final chapter of it. So it's but that's just I enjoy that.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite verse?
Uh, I don't know. I can't even quote my verse they gave me when I was baptized. It's in Corinthians. I recognize it when I see it, but I I guess probably John 3:16 is probably one of my favorites. It's when you hear the most. I have a little thing every time I ever stay in a motel and they have a Gideon Bible. I turn to John 3:16 and mark it and put a dollar bill in there and put it back in the drawer.
When did you start doing that?
Oh, I've done it for quite a few years. When I was as a principal, I used to go to a lot of conventions,
Oh, yeah.
principals conventions all over the United States, and that was one of the things I had in my contract.
Are you serious? That's funny.
Well, I worked hard, and that I didn't. We were underpaid compared to the old town teachers and other principals. I mean, so we negotiated that into a contract that we could go to one national principal conference a year. And one year they'd pay $1,000. The other year they pay us $2,000 for going. So it helped quite a lot with expenses. So I went, I think, 17 national conventions. So I've never heard any results from it because I never put my name in it or anything. But I'm just wondering how many people took a dollar bill and how many people actually took a Bible out and looked through it.
Yeah.
You might try that sometime here when you stay in a motel or a hotel.
Yeah.
Skim through it. I quite often look through it just to see if there's anybody written anything in it.
Yeah.
Interested. And I understand now it's getting hard for the Gideons to do that. So a lot of hotels don't want it. Well, it's just too bad, really.
If you were to guess how many years you've been reading and praying together in the morning and evening?
Basically from the time I retired,
Yeah.
because we didn't have time before that to spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
We had to get to work. I was always at work by 6 o'clock in the morning. I was usually the only man in the building.
Yeah.
Most of my teachers were women, and so I always like to be there first. And we've had a few experiences that I was glad I was. So,
Really?
yeah. We came, tell you one that was kind of stood out. My first year as principal, I had a teacher that I'd had in school. She'd been my teacher a couple of years. And I had all older teachers. I was just my beginning teaching experience. It was actually my second year teaching, and I was teaching in principal. And I got to school, and she'd got there just shortly before I had. And she met me at the door, and she said, "Oh, come down to the teacher's room quick." So I went down, and the janitor was laying there with his pants down around his ankles. And so I said, "Wow,
That's strange.
it's strange, yeah." So he was a strange guy. Anyway, the janitor, he was a strange guy, and I knew that he was a good friend with the chairman of the school board and the school committee. He lived up about 2 houses from the school. So I said, "Don't wake him, let him lay there." And I went out and I rapped on this guy's door, the chairman of the school board. I said, "Could you come down to school for a minute? I want to show you something." He got his jacket on, came down, and opened the door, and I showed it. And he walked up to him, and he drew off and slapped him right across He was sound asleep. He jumped out because his pants were done way in his underwear was way down around his ankles, you know, and he was staggering. Needless to say, we fired him. But that was one of the most dramatic scenes that I ever had. So we had a few other ones that sometimes some of the parents could get pretty upset about times, but different times. But we usually could work with them, you know. So.
I did ask you yesterday what one of your favorite like school memories or a funny school like memory you had in teaching. Do you have anything? I'd love to hear something. Or what is a funny story?
Okay, well, I've had a lot of funny things happen in school. I remember one day I had a knock on my door, and I opened the door, and this boy said, Mr. Turner, I'm sick, and threw up down the whole front of me. So that was one thing. We had numerous things have happened that one day I was teaching and my teeth flew out, my upper teeth, I had false teeth, and it flew out and I caught it in, put it back in, kept kept right on teaching. So I don't think the kids even knew it. So
Really?
I usually stood up when I taught, so I hardly ever sit down. So
Kind of roam around. Just
wandering around,
that's
yeah,
funny.
yeah, yeah. It just happened. That's the only time it ever happened, though. So it's a thank goodness.
What's a moment in your life that like really sticks out? Like what's one of your favorite moments in your entire life?
Oh, I don't know. I was thinking today. I think I said something about it. One Saturday, I was having some problems in school with some kids that were acting out, and I said, Saturday I'm going up the farm, and I went in the spring of the year, it was getting warm, so I took a chair and I went out and sat on the lawn up the farm, and just sat there, and there was a mother deer and a little lamb down the field, and that little lamb was just playing and kicking and running, and so I sat there probably an hour and watched them. That was really, I don't know why I can still remember that, but it was one of the most relaxing times I had, just to see that little lamb running and kicking and so forth. So it was a very relaxing time. Farm always relaxes me when I go up there. Spent a lot of time as a kid up there. And my mother was in the hospital for a long time, and I went to both grandparents. I'd stay with them. Dad was working in the woods and wasn't home. You know, I couldn't stay home, so I used to stay with my grandparents a lot. I think of 1 week one parent, 1 week the other one. That was before I started school. So, yeah.
If you were to, if a 12-year-old kid came up to you and said, "What's your best life advice for living a great life?" What would you tell them?
Work hard.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to school, study hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kids always take the easy way out, seems like. And I never was afraid to work.
Yeah.
My dad, I think I was in maybe the 8th grade. Dad bought a cow. We had a little tie-up in the back of the garage. He built a little lean-to type place, and we had hay up over the garage. And he was staying all week in the woods, and he'd tell me before he left, he said, "Don't you dare let your mother milk that cow." So I had to go out in the morning and milk it, and then come home at night and milk it again. And I hated to go up to the hay mow at night. I don't know why, but I always thought, oh, there was probably tramps around. I never see a tramp in Bellington, but they used to. I used to milk her every night and morning, but it was I didn't enjoy it too much. So that was one of the hardest things I had to do. Plus tend the garden, which I hated, but now I love garden work. And always, once we were married, I always had a big garden. Did a lot of raised up just about all the vegetables we used all winter. So it was to freeze them and can them. And, you know, it was a good part of my life. Yeah.
What else would you tell them? Work hard.
Work hard, study hard if you're in school.
Yeah.
Be honest. You know, it's so much easier if you're honest. If you try to get away with something and not tell it just the way it happened, it's going to come back to you some way. Somebody's going to cross it up. It just doesn't pay to try to get away from something. It's, you know, face it head on.
Yeah.
That's best advice I can give. So,
Got anything else you want to add?
no, I can't think of anything else that's anything that's standing out in my mind. That I hired out when I was in Connecticut long before I met Sue. I hired out for Schick Safety Racer, and I had 5 machines that I could run, making double-edged blades.
Yeah.
And the first week that I was on, I was training, and this guy that brought me in after 2 days left me, and I had a tender and another guy that inspected, and the stainless steel blades come in rolls like this, stainless steel, steel from Sweden, and the width of a razor blade. And the 2 other guys, there was 3 shifts, and the other 2 guys, I had a chance to talk to both of them. When they come in, there'd be one. Another one come in before I left, and they'd say, "Well, take it easy. Don't try to do too much." Well, they were making 300 pounds a shift. It was the whole pile. I couldn't believe the scrap metal that they were wasting. And so I liked the inspector, and I liked my tender. And he, the second, or third, the first day I was on my own, or the third day I worked there, we made 400 pounds with no scrap. And at the end of 5 days, the foreman came over and he said, "You interested in working just days?" I said, "Oh, yes, I'm a newly married man, of course I am." And he said, "Well, these other guys, you know, they don't care whether they do it right or not." And so he said, "Put them on nights and you can have days where I can make 500 pounds of blades every day without hardly breaking those into a sweat." And I'd set a machine up and get it all ready, and I'd start it. And I'd set the other one up and get it all ready and start that. And before I get through, I'd have all 5 of them set up. So when number 1 went down, I'd start up number 4. And I'd had them all inspected and everything, and there was no waste. Just, you know, once the thing is set up right, it just does itself. So I could make 500 pounds with nothing. And it's 500 pounds of razor blades, quite a lot of razor blades. So especially those double-edged blades. So that was one of the examples of how working hard and doing it the right way it paid off for me. After the first week, I worked every day. So yeah.
All right, to end it, I want to hear one more baseball memory that you love.
No, not the baseball memory. Well, I love baseball, and I remember one time, I forget where we was playing, on the Woodland, the Lee men's team. I was playing down, and some reason or another, they put me in leadoff. And the first pitch they pitched me, there was a hemlock tree out in center field.
Yeah.
There was a fence in front of it, and I hit it right over the top of that hemlock tree. And I never see a ball. That's the hardest ball I ever hit in the first pitch. So I think we won the game fairly easy that day, but I don't think I ever hit a ball that far. Because it was kind of an open drop off after the field, and it just kept going and going and going. I don't think they ever got the ball. So, but, I liked hitting. I like to hit home runs, especially. I used to hit a lot of softball home runs, even fast pitch. I played fast pitch in Washington D.C. and they had it was like Fenway Park. They had a high fence in left field. It was only like 200 feet or so. And I hit a lot of balls over it. Once in a while I can get one over it, but hit a lot of balls into it. So that was fun. That was fast pitch. Oh, if you hit it square, it'd go a long way. So Are we through?
Yeah. I think we can call right there. That's good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gramps.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Now you're going to show that to him.
I don't know.
Keep it on file.
I'm just keeping it for my own enjoyment. That's really.
Yeah.
I'll take.
Someday we'll get to. I'll be gone. You can show it to your great grandkids and grandkids.
They can see about Gramps who hit moonshot home runs over hemlock trees.
Anyhow, things like that you remember. I know you remember a lot of your home runs too.